podcast is recorded on the traditional lands of the Boonwurrung and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders and acknowledge their connection to this land. There's no justice without First Nations justice. So here we are, we're in our podcast. We've called it Second City, which I love, and I can't wait to talk more about why that is and what it is that it means. But to give a little bit of a background, I feel like the mood of this moment for everybody that I'm encountering on the internet and in my life is that the way that things are and the way that things feel and the way they're going isn't working. And in response to that, the overwhelming feeling that I get from everybody is like, what are we going to do next? And so we've called this podcast Second City after the idea that if the first city is no longer working, what does the second city look like? And it's a name that came out of a story that Alex shared with me when we caught up for a cup of tea once. And Alex, I'd love you to tell that right now. Just tell that story. Let's just get it underway.
All right. So the story was kind of like this broad rambling thing about like the research that I do for work about this baboon troop. And baboons generally are really known for being very hierarchical, really aggressive. The alpha males dominate everything and they control their troops with like really extreme violence. And this baboon troop in Kenya that was being studied, the researchers were already worried about them because humans were encroaching on their territory, and the alpha baboons were getting pretty dependent on kind of human garbage, which was like particularly delicious for them. And the normal baboons could never get to this human garbage because it was so delicious. The alpha baboons kept it all to themselves. Then one day, the alpha baboons, gorging themselves on garbage, got food poisoning from it. And all the alphas died. And the researchers were really panicky that the whole troop was going to collapse because there's never been such a thing as a baboon troop without the dominant alphas, and that's just how baboon life works. But the most extraordinary thing happened. The women baboons, the lady baboons, they kind of just took up the mantle of directing how things are going to go, but they did it in this really collaborative, cooperative way. And all the non-alpha male baboons who were used to kind of collaborating with the females just kind of joined in this collaborative system. And then these adolescent baboons who were destined to become the new alphas, over the years, and this was studied over 20 years, they were enculturated into this new collaborative, gentle style, and the troop actually, it didn't collapse, it thrived. And what I reckon is so interesting about this is so much of what we assume is just how the world is and how things have to be. Sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes our environments create unhelpful systems or systems that hurt more people than they help. And so when I talk to both Sonia and Lerna, like all three of us are always talking about what are those ways in which people can come together in order to do good things that help more people rather than harm them.
Yeah. I love that, and I'm already picturing the baboons that should suffer from food poisoning.
Yes, and thinking, how can we implement that on a large scale?
And the idea of competition driven, which is something that I think is really fascinating to think about, as opposed to collaboration, to compete for survival instead of to collaborate.
Yes,
and
exactly. And thank you for picking out the point there of the whole Second City thing, which is that, you know, friendly competition is one thing, but the sort of competition where it's winner takes all and like one person benefits but everyone else has to eat shit is like not a great system for most people. Most people are not going to be Donald Trump when they grow up. Most people are going to eat the shit that Donald Trump creates. Not to get political, because we're not really meant to be getting too political here, but yeah, that sort of thing.
Yes. When you said Second City, And when we're talking about, the baboons, your baboon story, I thought, oh my God, because years ago I wrote this middle grade fiction book, and the book at that time was called First World, and main character goes into an alternate world, which is the second world. Like in my book, in my head, it was the second world. And
That's
in this
amazing.
second world, this is with me not knowing anything about this baboon story. In this second world, the women, mostly the mothers, have this huge coup and change the flow of society. And so they set down all the rules where human emotion and connection rule above all else. And our place in the whole natural world is just a given. Everyone knows that we belong. And so now when you talk about Second City and when you talk about this baboon story, it's like, oh my God, this is like, the main plot in this book that I had just popped out of my head. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we can bring this to fruition and we can make this world, just starting from our own little circle here, we can grow this into reality.
Damn straight. I do feel like there's a real sense of this moment out there in the community, though, and this is not, I've been a long time fan of sci-fi, but it feels like we've arrived at a point in history where, the idea of the way we have organised ourselves as a community is under real attack, and it's, I think, fragmenting, fraying, and collapsing. And I see examples of this all the time, because whenever I speak about how elements of our economy don't work, for instance, I find that the feedback that I get is people saying all the time, well, what do we do now? Or if I speak about, what's happening in America, and the chaos that's sort of unfurling there, and the absolute erosion of democracy before our eyes, it seems. That the response from people online, and I get direct messages from people all the time saying, well, what's next? What are we going to do instead?
Yeah.
If this world is ending, what are we going to build from the ashes? And so to my mind, the Second City conversation is about putting on the table what we're going to build from the ashes and how we're going to organise ourselves. And what does that look like? And the thing that, I feel like I have a tenuous idea of the things that are involved, which I'm really keen to talk about with you guys. And I don't know that it's concrete of like, we'll organise society X, Y, Z, or if it's just about how we relate to each other. That's actually what's going to be coming to the fore.
I love hearing this from you and also from Alex when she, because I love hearing that it's not just me who is despairing at the state of the world and why does no one care. When you tell me these stories of, the people that you meet and what they're telling you, it is so comforting to know that I'm not alone in thinking this and feeling this, because you do. Like, I feel like why are the governments not doing anything? Why is the world not acting? I cannot watch the news because I cry. I know what's happening in Gaza, but I cannot bear to see a headline because it is just too distressing. It's so upsetting that it's just permitted to continue. And that other, injustices in the world, it's too much. I can't take any more in. And then I get so upset that doesn't anybody else feel like this? Because I'm going to work, I'm in my own little world, I can't see what other people are feeling, and I don't see it. There's no social uproar. Yes, there's protests and things, but the governments are not reacting to what I would like to see. And so when I hear you tell me that other people are feeling the same as me, I think, okay, there's something there that's really comforting, and we have to do something just to bring us all together and just try and fix the terrible state that the world is in right now. So thank you for telling me those stories.
Yeah, totally. I think sharing those stories is so important. And I mean, as much as social media is disastrous and damaging, at least it is a way to be able to talk to each other. And I know we're the millionth, billionth podcast that there is, but I'm all here for this one. The more of us doing what we're doing to build our second cities, I think is so important. And even if there's no one solution, maybe there's how many billion humans there are, 8 billion humans, maybe there's 8 billion ways of doing human solutions, and maybe it's not even a solution so much as it is as a healing from that old way of being and growing into this new way of being.
And also we'll all get much more done together than we can ever get done alone, right? And you know, like that feeling you get when you're feeling really crap, but then you see someone that you haven't seen in a little bit, but you really love them, and you just feel lighter with the world. Like, I think one of the things we're hoping to do with this is to kind of expand that feeling among people so that we can kind of all find ways to have big ideas together, because you get better ideas with other people as well.
Yeah. There's a saying which Desmond Tutu, you remember Desmond Tutu? And he worked, I think he was in South Africa, and he had this saying, that a word that he used, and it's a Bantu word, and it's Ubuntu, Ubuntu, and it roughly translated means I am because we are. And I talk about it a lot in my other life, because I feel that maybe if we understood ourselves more as a collective and less as isolated individuals, well, first of all, we wouldn't be lonely, would we?
Yeah.
And we wouldn't feel so forlorn against overwhelming problems. But second of all, we would experience our collective power. And I think that's something that is so lost in our era, when we are so individualized, and the system that we're in, this sort of late stage capitalism that we're in, asks us to be these economic units floating around with enormous purchasing power and a vacuum of need that we have to fill by buying stuff. And it's sort of the opposite of this idea. This idea is that it is us as a collective that has this value and this power, and that together we can do things, which of course we can.
And amazingly, like when in a research group, I'll say, like, here's a potential solution to a particular problem, people go, yeah, that sounds fantastic, but how's it ever going to happen, right? The elites control things, and they've got no interest in changing stuff because the current situation suits them. And I came across this other piece of research that I now bring into the research groups, whereby this researcher called Erica Chenoweth, and she's worth looking up, said that any peaceful social movement, so non-violent social movement, that hits 3.5% of the population, that takes in 3.5% of the population, has never failed anywhere. That is, like, in every situation, whether it's like overthrowing a dictator to something maybe less extreme, when you mobilize 3.5% of the population, you achieve whatever it is you set out to do, as long as it's like non-violent. So, this sense of hopelessness really serves people who are in a position of power and don't want things to change. If we all feel hopeless and like there's no point in doing anything, well, then they get to continue on their merry way. But what if we come together?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I reckon there's a ton more than 3.5% who want to know what we're going to do instead, and are waiting for someone to build it. And I find it really interesting, because I would call this a lot of disorganised political energy that's out there in the community, that's just waiting. And it's looked at, for instance, politics as the way that we've previously used our collective power to have influence over our lives. And it's realised that that model isn't working anymore either. For some reason, that too is broken, and there are valiant attempts to try and bring that back, into some sort of real model that works for people. But I feel like and those attempts are meaningful and important, and we've all been involved in them in one way or another. And I love that. That's wonderful. But yeah, there's got to be something else that we do that we takes this disorganized energy, this mobilization for something else, and figures out what we're going to do with ourselves. And I think, I don't know who it was who said that, you know, when the shit hits the fan, people are going to look and see what are the ideas that are there. And I feel like the task of this moment is to come up with good ideas and put them on the table, so that when shit hits the fan, and it will, won't it, like it will, then there are good ideas that are already on the table, and there are conversations that are already having about how we want to be together as a community.
Yeah. And I reckon it's not going to come from the political world. It's going to come from us.
Right.
It's going to come from, you know, the charities. It's going to come from the regular person off the street. You know, it's not. We cannot wait for the politicians to do anything.
Yeah.
100%.
Because what's on the table in Parliament is not addressing this stuff. Yeah.
They don't represent us anymore. Then it feels like they are not there for us. I remember years ago, Robin Williams said that all politicians, like NASCAR drivers, should have all their sponsors on their clothes. Do you remember when Robin Williams said that?
Oh, and man, he was so true. If only.
That's so spot on. Every person in that chain, in both those chambers, should have their sponsors on their suits. That's who they're representing. Yeah. Well, that's how they come across, you know.
Yeah.
100%.
I wish they did.
And a lot of Aussies don't actually know about sort of political donations and lobbying, and it's not because, like, if you do know about it and you think, oh, how could they not know? It's like, you know, people are busy. You know, if you're not steeped in politics, then it's really easy not to know about this stuff. But when they find out, they're like, well, that's shit. That shouldn't be.
Because it is shit.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like America's sort of the end of that story, isn't it? Where there's just democracies of pantomime. It's some sort of a farce.
Exactly.
Nobody in that country knows what's real anymore. I don't, watching from afar, know what's real over there.
Do you ever feel like America's kind of like a warning for Australia, this perpetual warning, and that we're so lucky because they go to stupid places first?
I feel like America's the movie of humanity, and it's now, do we want life to imitate art? And if we don't, then we need to choose something different at some point.
Yes, but have you seen that really bad movie, Idiocracy? It's a really bad movie. It's really old. But it is America right now. That's like a documentary to what the path that the US is on.
Yeah.
That's, I remember watching this thinking, oh my God, it's so bad, but it's still really good. Like, it's so true.
Yeah. So I feel like, yes, the role of this podcast is to create a space to have those conversations. And the thing you said before, Alex, about coming home to friends, you know, we sometimes catch up and we always order a traditional bowl of hot chips. Very and for important. A little while we talked about, I kind of thought maybe we would call our podcast hot chips, because I was like, that's the energy I want for us, is a bowl of hot chips on a cold day, which it is currently.
Yes.
Yeah. So then people can join us for hot chips and Second City.
Hot chips in a tea, because I'm fucking old, and that's what makes me happy.
That's right. We're not apologising. Yeah, true. Yeah, so what else do we want to talk about in our first episode?
Do you want to talk about your experiences with the stuff?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Can you handle it?
I can. It might be therapeutic. So I'm thinking a lot about the economy this week, which is like uncharacteristic, because I was in, as we all are, in a super fund, and it went under last Monday, and I found out by getting an email from the fund that I was with telling me, oh, bad news, we've gone into liquidation and everything's frozen. And I sort of had an inkling of it a month beforehand when they emailed everybody and said, oh, one of our fund managers is under investigation from ASIC, which I immediately panicked and tried to move my money then into a new fund. And as soon as I got the second email last Monday, I quickly went to my new fund and I checked the balance, because of course I'd given them permission to go and get my money from the other place, and I realised it hadn't come across, and that in fact all my money was still frozen in that other place. And by frozen, I mean gone, valueless. So the unit, every dollar is a unit, and the units were without value. Because, it's being described as the Oz as like the most significant fraud in Australia's economic history.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I think there's about 12,000 of us caught up in this fraud, and about $1 billion has been lost of super. So, which is an extraordinary experience because, of course, in Australia, super is compulsory, so we're compelled to be a part of these schemes. And I think you assume, as a taxpayer, super payer, that if it's something you're forced to do, that there will be provision of supervision and, some sort of oversight of these schemes so that you're safe and your money is safe. And this is a bit of an eye-opening experience for me, that that's not the case, and I have nothing. I'm a renter, no assets, no savings, no intergenerational wealth coming my way. So I just feel utterly bereft, and I'm kind of lucky that, well, at least I probably still have 20 more years of work life ahead of me, whereas, I've had messages and DMs from people who are in their late 60s who are approaching retirement, who are now, one fellow messages me sort of 10 or 20 times a day because he's so panicked about what's happening. And it's really scary for people. So the superannuation fund sent this PDF of like, this is what's happening, these are the liquidators, and then a page of lifeline numbers. And from what I can tell, there's just very little recourse for people. So, I mean, it's one of those cracks in the... What's that movie with
in the
Keanu
Matrix.
Reeves?
Cracks in the Matrix.
It's a crack in the Matrix, Lerner. It's a crack in the Matrix where you realise that things don't work how they should. And the funny thing is, because like this superannuation fund turns out not to have been, it was like basically 5 raccoons in a trench coat. And because it's regarded as a financial trust investment failure, the liquidators will repay creditors, not the super holders. So they'll repay these failed investment funds, which are failed property developers, a failed restaurant. The dude bought a yellow Lamborghini and some houses on the Yarra River. So the liquidators will use the money, to fund their own activities at $28,000 a day or something, and then repay creditors of those failed investments instead of repaying the superannuation holders, which is 12,000 people who have lost their life savings. And to my mind, it just feels like, well, of course, the system keeps protecting itself.
Yes.
And it's the people forced to participate in the system who are up shit creek without a paddle now, with nothing but a page of lifeline numbers and
that's
all.
So bad.
So then how do you want to participate in the system, right?
That's really insulting.
Yeah.
I find that really rude. What?
Yeah.
Here's your lifeline numbers. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Well,
and even
Lifeline's
to try
a lot cheaper than proper regulation. That's the point.
Yes. Well, and even someone sort of said to me as well, as if the mental health system can deal with this, because that's also eroded, isn't it? There's no recourse for the individual that is forced to participate in the system, because the system only protects itself. Mm-hmm. It will, the defunct creditors of this fraud, this probable Ponzi scheme, they will all be reimbursed, but we won't be. And then there's no, when I retire and when these other people retire, the pension, as we know, is sort of half the poverty line. If you don't have a freehold home, how can you afford your rent or your mortgage?
It's just
terrible. How can you afford to live? It doesn't work.
Thing. See, no one cares that up those levels. No one cares, really cares about the everyday person. Whether it's health, financial, whatever it is, there is no authentic concern or, wanting to help, not wanting to fix it. This is what I struggle with. No one really gives a shit.
No. They live in their little bubble, don't they? Yeah. Until they're exposed to someone else's suffering or forced to experience it.
Or it impacts them.
That's right.
As soon as it happens to them, we've got to fix this. This is really bad.
Yeah.
How could this have happened?
Yeah. And I feel like, the
Yes.
childcare stuff. Exactly. Yep. And then suddenly it takes for vulnerables, and it's always the vulnerables who are hurt.
Yes.
Right? Little ones, or older people in this instance, who are the most messed up by this situation.
But you saw politicians give a shit about that because they have to use childcare, right? And so they're in this shitty system with the rest of us. But for something like this, where they've got financial advisors, they don't have to worry quite as much. And I saw a bright spark because I first heard about this horrible thing from you personally, Sonia, but then I saw it on your Instagram as well. And a bright spark in your comment said, well, you should have done your due diligence, blah, blah, blah. As though these things aren't impossibly complex and deliberately complex, because the complexity suits certain people higher up than us, right?
Yeah.
But in the same way that you'd never say, well, you should understand anatomy before you criticise a doctor who amputates the wrong limb.
Yeah.
No. We're allowed to criticise the doctor who makes a mistake and amputates the wrong limb without knowing exactly how it all works, right?
Yeah.
So we can criticise this system that forces us to invest in super and forces us into this incredibly complex thing that is opaque, that we can't possibly understand by ourselves unless we pay a fortune to a financial advisor, and there's no one protecting us. We can criticise that. We can.
Yeah. And in this case, it does feel like the disadvantage. So I put my money into this super because I don't have a lot, and they told me that I could maximise my returns, and I'm vulnerable to that because I've been a sole trader who hasn't had extra money to put into super, and a small business owner. Because I was already vulnerable in this space, I was even more vulnerable to a fraud. And that's the thing that shits me the most, I think, is that the system itself kicks people when they're down and then throws them out, Whoop. And everybody in the comments wants to victim blame, because of course it makes you feel safer if you think it's your fault. It's not the system's fault. We can't emotionally deal with the whole overwhelm of that.
But it never happened to me because I pay attention.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, well, and I think the one thing that's come out of it for me that gives me hope, it's like we were talking about earlier, is people saying to me, yeah, the system is broken, we need a new system. What does that look like? And I mean, I feel like I just want to walk around with a Richard Scarry book being like, it could be like this. It could be in a community where we all know each other and there's a little green worm driving a cute yellow car.
I love those books. When I used to give them to my kids, they were my favourite.
So why can't we have a village square where we know each other and we're accountable and responsible to each other?
And drive an Apple car.
Yeah,
and like an Apple car.
I want an Apple car. And nobody would ever say to me if I was in an Apple car that something unfortunate that happens to me is my fault, you know? That we should never be able to look each other in the eye and not care about each other's experiences. It feels like road rage.
And personal responsibility, right, is around things like road rage, being kind, whatever. Yeah, we need to take personal responsibility to make sure we're kind to other people, we work hard, we pull our weight, we don't take advantage of other people. Yeah, I'm all for personal responsibility, but sometimes personal responsibility comes up against a system that is much, much bigger and much more complex than any one individual can ever possibly navigate. And so we need to be realistic about what the difference between those things actually looks like.
Yeah, and I think it's maliciously designed for this malicious complexity, right? Like it's designed to be impervious to ordinary people. The whole economic system doesn't want to be held up, to the light, does it?
Yes.
Because it benefits people who are at the top of the system at the expense of everybody else. So the liquidators will protect the multi-million dollar investors in this scheme at the other end, but not at the human individual economic unit end, where all of my units are now frozen and worthless.
That's like HEX, let's take all the money out of struggling students to protect the big fossil fuel companies and, petrol companies. Like, a student doesn't have the power to change the system.
Yeah.
And it benefits all the people up at that top level. It's the same concept. It's just makes me so angry.
Yeah, and I think everybody feels angry. That's the vibe I get too. And we also know that we can't utilise politics to fix it. We're going to need something else, or at least the utility of politics hasn't been enough in the past.
No.
So what else have we got? Yeah,
politics is just bullshit. Like, and like dental, for example. When you talk about like Medicare, like, we're such a great country. We have Medicare. Yeah, really? Do you know how much it covers now when you go to the doctors? Like maybe if you're lucky, 1/6 of the bill you're paying. Let alone if you need to have a tooth pulled out or anything. Well, sorry, that doesn't cover that at all. Like, they live in their own little fantasy world, thinking, aren't we such a great nation? We've got all these, get all these little security blankets and things for everyone. When no, it's just a cover. It's not, everything's falling apart.
Yeah. Yep. And I think this is the beautiful thing about getting together to talk about it, because we're not alone in thinking that. You know, there's, I mean, just in my comments, thousands of people who feel the same way.
Because I see lots of people who are angry, but I also see lots and lots of people who are just exhausted and that they're just overwhelmed and they don't even have the energy to be angry. And I know how I feel after talking to both of you. I always feel less tired, less like things can't be done. I always feel like the world can be better. And so what I'm hoping is that we'll have some of those exhausted people who come across us and feel a little bit of what you guys always make me feel.
Yeah. Come for a bowl of chips, friends.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Put the kettle on and let's talk about the second city.
So that's why this is our movement, women.
This is our movement. Yeah.
But can I just point out though that, like, yes, women, but yes, also in my research I see these amazing men as well who don't benefit from this awful kind of first city thing where winner takes all competition, where survival of the fittest, which is like completely misunderstood as well, right? There are so many good men, like the three of us have amazing men in our lives as well. And I see these men who in a second city scenario would thrive, but in the first city scenario, they have to eat shit too.
That's it. Yeah.
And includes our sons, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's really key, because when we talk about patriarchy and it's, to my mind, they're stereotypical traits ascribed to masculinity, which include those alpha male traits, but they aren't always male. They're just ascribed to the masculine, as opposed to traits that are ascribed to the feminine, which are collaborative and you know, work together. All of those emotional traits. And I think so we need to break that down too. You know, these traits belong in us all. I have a son who's deeply emotional and needs to be able to have voice for that to be healthy as a person. And I think this is the really interesting thing about the patriarchal model, is that it tells men you're not allowed to have emotions, which is the most profound damage I can imagine doing to a group of people there is, to say that who you are and how you feel. And that's what I think needs to end above all.
Yes, yes,
to give men back to themselves, right?
Yes, and permission that everyone, male and female, can show their vulnerability. You're allowed to show your true self. Yeah, it's not a sign of weakness. Be yourself. Tell people when you're scared, or when you're worried, or when you're not feeling right. That's strength and that's courage.
Yeah,
100%. There was this guy in one of the research projects who said, like, a bunch of the guys were complaining about the idea of toxic masculinity and constantly being told that they're toxic as men, and they were really like hating it. And one guy said, "Look, men. I feel like men are treated like shit, but men treat each other like shit, right?" And what I heard from him was that he wants other men around him who'll be kind to him, so that he can be kind to them and not have to worry that they'll see that as a sign of weakness.
Yeah, yeah. I watched this little reel on Instagram. The extraordinary queer poet Andrea Gibson passed away last week, and I watched a reel of them talking about how they have this little theory, scientific theory, that vulnerability will save our species. And their theory is based on the idea that animals with a shell evolve, and this exoskeleton, this protective exoskeleton, evolve incredibly slowly, whereas the most vulnerable animals, like the octopus, have evolved very, very quickly to become one of the most intelligent creatures on the planet, with, now we realise, highly organised societies under the sea, and real, alien-like intelligence.
My theory is the second that octopuses...
Octopi.
Octopodes, I think, is the...
Really?
Yeah. don't get me started. But the many octopuses, the second they grow opposable thumbs, we're fucked. And it's the same as orcas,
Yeah.
right? The orcas are organizing and
They are
teaching.
I love it.
And-
I love what
Yeah.
And they're teaching each other how to fuck up rich people's yachts,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. Well, they're coming for CEOs and billionaires.
And I'm
That's
cheering
right.
them on the sidelines.
I know.
Go.
I welcome our oceanic overlords.
I'm
Yeah.
scared of them.